Can you hear us? Can you... Over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
Fuckwit. Hey, there we go. This should do it, right? Are we there? Are we back? Fuckwit. Yes, we are. All right. God dang it. Hi, everybody. Oh, now I'm out of focus, for fuck's sakes. All right, hang on. Hang on. All right, now you're gonna see this ridiculous thing here while the focus box focuses. Hang on. There we go. Now this little focus box will go away, but in the meantime, let's mug for the damn camera. Gee, bus. This is a professional operation we got going here, folks. Believe it or effing not. This is my life. This is what I deal with. All right, everybody. We have wasted 5 minutes. Now, unfortunately, all right, we need to do a very, very quick poll because I want to just go black and start. Once you go black, you can never go back. But I think we can this time. I just want to go black and I want to start this whole thing over again. But to do that effectively, I'm going to have to edit out the first 5 minutes of this show, 6 minutes of this show. If I do that, all of your comments will be lost. Do you care about that? Should we just let the boom run or should we edit it out and lose all the comments? One for just shut up and boom. 2 is edited out and act semi-professional. Give us a quick one now. One for booming right along, and 2 for edit it out and make yourself look slightly better than you really are. Oh. Hell. All right. Well, no sense to continue on with that. The looks like the votes have spoken. That's what we got to go with. Let's go. All right. Everybody, well, all right. I'm going to have to remember mentally to put a note that says skip ahead to the 7-minute mark. And the 7-minute mark starts right now. This is where we started. It's Maritime Monday again. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, all that other stuff. I'm just glad you're doing it here. You're all doing great. Everything is super, except for this end of the computer. So there we go. It's Maritime Monday. We're on the heels of a festive weekend. We had F at Friday. And by the way, I lost track somewhere along the line. I think we did around 27 shots for F at Friday, something like that. It was close there. I think it was like 24 earned, and we did 3 bonus shots. It was a whole lot of shenanigans going on. It was fun. We had a great time. But I made a bad mistake because I woke up from F at Friday and I thought, hey, you know what? I slept for like 10 hours. So I slept through the hangover, woke up perfect, hung out a little bit with Megan Fox on her channel. And I'm going to go over there immediately after this, by the way, and we'll watch more of the Maya hearing. I woke up, hung out with her for an hour or so. Then I had to go out and forage for some food because I was getting hungry, and I had an appointment. And the idea was, I thought, after a good F at Friday where we just drank way too much, I think the best thing to do would be to do some Tex-Mex food. So we went and got some Tex-Mex food, me and a friend, and we had decided to have a margarita. That led to another margarita, which led to us going to a different Tex-Mex restaurant, a higher end Tex-Mex restaurant with way better cocktails than the little chain store thing that we were at. And the best way to recover from a F at Friday stream is apparently not to have 4 margaritas, a Paloma, Kentucky Mule, and maybe 1 or 2 other things throughout the day. But we did that. And then Sunday, I had this amazing tour of the USS Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier that's here in port. That was super cool. I always love going on these ships. I've had the opportunity to go on Navy ships where they make port calls here in Busan since about 1991, 1992, when the Midway came and stopped at Busan, one of his last tours, one of his last port of calls before it was decommissioned. So yeah, I got to spend a couple hours on the flight deck of the USS Ronald Reagan, walking around, taking pictures. Took some pictures and put them on Twitter. Didn't want to sort of inundate Twitter with pictures of me and geeking out about airplanes and helicopters and whatnot. But that was really, really super fun. Today was a good day at work, where it turns out the person that I was spending the entire day with yesterday sends me a message, says he's tested positive for the vid. So we'll see how it goes. I'm going to take my home test in the morning. If I come back positive for the vid, I've got a 5-day vacation not a 5-day vacation work, 5 days for working at home because of the vid. Otherwise, it's business as usual. But if I do have the vid and I'm working from home, I'll probably have a lot more time to be here and hanging around with other people. But in the meantime, just sort of a preparatory thing to get ready for a possible bout of the vid, I've decided to make one of the greatest cocktails you can ever have in the winter. It's the most basic cocktail. It's a basic winter cocktail. The cocktail of the day today is the classic, traditional hot toddy. For that, get yourself a nice glass. Now, be damn careful and make sure the glass you're putting boiling water into is a glass that's intended to have boiling water in it. Otherwise, it shatters and you get broken glass everywhere and boiling hot water all over you. Been there, done that, not fun. So get a glass. This is a glass that was specifically made for Irish coffee, so it's acceptable for heat. To make the hot toddy, which is the cocktail of the day. The cocktail of the day is the classic hot toddy. Start with 3/4 of an ounce, 0.75 ounces of freshly squeezed lemon juice. Just put it straight in the cup. To that, add 1 tablespoon of honey. Now, this honey is nice and thick. Oh, there we go. Glop. And later, we're going to use this spoon to actually stir the honey with. And to that, add 2 ounces of a good bourbon. This is Costco. This is Kirkland's Bottled in Bond Master Distillers Edition. We're going to talk about this tomorrow. This is a fantastic whiskey. Put 1.5 ounces into the glass. Ordinarily I double things up, but this recipe requires the precision. Pour the bourbon in. Then top it off with nice hot, boiling hot water, and then stir it up and use that spoon that had the honey on it. So it dissolves the honey from the spoon. There we go. We'll send everybody's earphones over the edge. Once you get that nice and mixed up, all the honey is off the spoon, it's all melted and incorporated. Then you get to get fancy. Take a long string of lemon peel, drop that in. Take yourself some star anise if that's your thing. Take your star anise, toast it up a bit. Release some of those oils and some of that essence. Get a nice little smoky flavor going. Drop that in and let that star anise flavor just roll in. And always a nice toasted stick of cinnamon, just a whole stick of cinnamon. Crank the heat up to 11. Get the cinnamon stick nice and hot so that it starts expressing some of the oils that's locked in the dried cinnamon wood. Drop that in, and then a nice fresh lemon wheel. Boom. And that right there is a classic, perfect, amazing, wonderful, wonderful hot toddy. Perfect just to have a drink. If you got a sore throat, it does wonders for sore throats. It's absolutely the most satisfying winter cocktail you can make in a heartbeat. That is so good. And then as it starts to cool and as it sits there a while, that cinnamon flavor, the star anise flavor just infuses the hot toddy with those flavors, and it is so good. All right, that's the cocktail of the day. Sorry, editor person. I know there's no way you're going to be able to do all of that into a 1-minute video, but what else? All right. That's it. Any questions? Yum. Looks like the recipe I gave my nephew was the discount version. No torched spices involved. Oh, you can just do straight up lemon, honey, bourbon, water. But if you're going to do it with that little panache. Do it with that, capriciousness with a hint of stateliness. Hi, everybody. Welcome. It is, as I said, Maritime Monday. We do have another Maritime Monday story today. It's probably, I know I said this last week and then we went way over time, but I don't think we're going to be going more than about an hour today because this is a relatively short, straightforward story. It just takes place over 20 years. We are going to be talking about one of the first real Maritime Monday cases that I wasn't personally dealing with that I thought was fascinating. This was the ferry, the Staten Island Ferry. And it was 2003. The vessel was the Andrew J. Barberi. It was one of the older Staten Island ferries. But this took place one day ago, October 15th, 2003. So exactly 20 years ago, this story took place. The Staten Island Ferry, the Andrew J. Barberi, crashed full speed into the pier, into a concrete maintenance pier. And as a result, and this was in Upper New York Bay, and as a result of this, 11 people were killed and 70 people were critically injured. Well, 70 people were injured. A lot of them were critically injured. What made this interesting, and we're going to talk a little bit about this later, the pilot, the guy who was in charge. There's the captain is in charge of the ferry, but he's the pilot. It's him. He's the pilot. That's him. He pled guilty to some crimes involved in this accident. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But weirdly, what happened was this 310-foot, this 94-meter ferry, which can hold about 6,000 people. If you jam everybody in, you can hold about 6,000 people. Normally, they would keep them around 5,000 max. But at this point in time, there's about 1,500 people on board. 1/4 of its maximum capacity. Now, the winds were pretty heavy that afternoon. There was gusts up to 40 miles an hour at 64 kilometers an hour, and the water was very choppy in the harbor. So instead of just docking, the ferry kind of angled away from the berth. And as it was angling away from this berth, it collided with this concrete maintenance pier. And well, as we'll see here from the pictures that I'll be showing a little bit later, it literally opened up the side of this Staten Island ferry like a tuna fish can. Just slice the side of this ship open. It just ripped into the starboard side. It tore into the boat's main deck where the passengers were standing, where they were all crowding around, waiting to be the first off the ship. It's like those people when you're in the airplane lands. As soon as they feel the wheels touch down and the plane began to slow a little bit, you hear all the seatbelts as people are undoing their seatbelt, like you're actually going to get off the goddamn plane in the next 30 minutes. And as soon as the plane stops, everybody jumps up and starts grabbing their overhead luggage. They start standing around, and then the announcement comes. Yeah, it's going to be another 20 minutes before we ferry to the gangway. So please, please stand by and take your seat again. And they just don't. It's like that. Everybody's waiting to get off the ferry. They're waiting to go to work. They're waiting to come back from work. They're waiting to do whatever. This was like 3:21 p.m. when the accident occurred. So they're all standing around, crowding around, and that right where they're standing is right where this concrete maintenance pier ripped through. The accident left a number of the victims trapped under piles of metal, broken glass, splintered wood. Other passengers jumped overboard. Never the best option if you can help it. The ferry's hull sustained amazing amounts of damage. And we'll show you some of the pictures of the damage a little bit later. 10 people were killed just outright. An 11th person died 2 months later from the injuries that they'd sustained during the collision. 70 others were injured, including people who lost limbs. But all of the fatalities and most of the injuries were to passengers on the main deck, where they were all crowded around, waiting to be the first one off the ship. Some of the passengers that were on the upper decks were injured during the crowd panic. Many were treated for shock. And unfortunately, again, this is just life being a karmic bitch sometimes. One of the deaths included someone who survived 9/11. It's like, yeah, you survive a 9/11 attack and then you die because of this stupid ferry accident. And a woman, she was placed in a, this is the woman that was 2 months later. She was put in a drug-induced coma for 2 months, and then, So we'll talk a little bit more about the accident. Then we'll talk about the aftermath and some of the legal and more specifically the criminal aspects of this. Before we do, we got some super chats to get through. Again, thank you so much for the big support that you guys always show. It's deeply, deeply appreciated. Marv White, member for 10 months, says, nuke the comments. That's what I would like to do, but unfortunately, the people have spoken, and I got to live with it. So Boomer's gonna hardcore. So thank you so much, Marv. Appreciate the comment. Bella Stella with $5. Boomering or not, we love you nonetheless. We love you too, Bella Stella. You are awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. We are now $95 away from Dog Cam. Nicholas Staroff's Trial Watch. 6 minutes of the chat screaming muted can be fun. Make it a separate video. Yeah, well, fun for everybody except for at least one person I can think of. Me. Oh, and thank you so much for having the name Nick Staroff's Trial Watch. You've just reminded me of the next trial that we will likely do. We're going to figure out this week what's happening with Melly. Some decisions are going to be made here in the next few days. I'm assuming that we already did that. I'm just clearing these off. I'm assuming, and it will be no surprise to anyone, that if the judge decides to go ahead with the trial, which it sounds like he's going to do, Friday, they're going to do some motions this week. They've got over 30 motions to clear out, with jury selection must begin on Monday of next week. It must begin on the 23rd. Well, Also supposed to be beginning on the 23rd. I don't know if you remember. This is one of the cases we talked about before. The Jesse Kershevsky trial. She's the one that reportedly stole about $350,000 from an old woman and then allegedly poisoned her with Visine, the eye drop killer case. Remember her? She's supposed to start on the 23rd as well. For that, jury selection isn't going to take 3 months. So we might have to do a little Melly warm-up with the Visine killer trial. That's what I plan on. Visine lady, yep. She fed the woman Visine, which we found out covering this, it takes a surprisingly little amount of Visine to kill a human being. And she used way more than necessary, claiming it was vodka. Again, if your vodka tastes like Visine, don't drink it. But yes, we will be checking that out. I don't know. I mean, it's not supposed to be very long. If I recall, it's supposed to be just a few-day trial. So that'll be like a good Melly warm-up. So we're going to start that. Absent anything big happening, we'll be starting that on Monday, the 23rd. So keep that in mind. Visine murder trial should start on Monday. All right, back to Maritime Monday. Right, so this was in 2003. Let's look at some of the pictures here. Let me bring up some pictures. Chat, I'm just reading some of the comments while I'm trying to bring this up. You guys are funny. All right. Let's see if we can embiggen these, shall we? Oh, is it going to let us do it? No, it's not going to let us do it. Guess continue as me, dummy. That's why I put it here. Right. Let me go back here a little bit. Oh, yeah, that's not what I want. That's exactly the opposite of what I wanted to do. Wasn't it? So let's go forward again. It had like a little display window here. Let's just we'll have to do it manually. Yeah, this is the side of the Staten Island Ferry. You can just see where it just opened the damn side of this thing like a can opener. Boof. I mean, and this is where the people were standing, waiting to go down the gangplank. Ugh. So the destruction to the Staten Island ferry boat Andrew J. Barberi, which was involved in a fatal accident these were pictures that were released for the 10th anniversary. Wednesday 2000, at least 10 people were killed and 34 people were injured. Well, that eventually went up to 70. The destruction of the Andrew J. Barberi stretches almost from the front to the rear of the boat. And remember, the front to the rear of this boat is nearly 100 meters, 310 feet, 94 meters. So this was nearly just 100 yards long. It slammed into that concrete pier at full speed. There's the front of the boat here. The firefighters going in to rescue people. Bodies unfortunately being taken out. The victim is brought out of the Staten Island Ferry. Barberi, as construction workers look on. This is October 15th. This is two days after the accident. There's the inside of the ship. Mexican Vader says, where are we at here? Where are we at, Mexican? Mexican Vader. So I like this. We got to work through the delays here. Okay. You're good. And stop. Don't worry, Captain. We'll buff out those scratches. If only that's the way it went. It was much more, I don't know, sinister isn't the right word. It's much more unpleasant than that. So the destruction to the interior of the Staten Island ferry boat Andrew J. Barberi, which was involved in a fatal accident at the ferry terminal in Staten Island, New York, Wednesday, October 15th, 2003. The ferry slammed into a pier as it was docking, killing at least 10 people, reducing the front of the mighty vessel to a shattered mass of wood, glass, and steel. At least 34 people were injured. Oh, if only that's all that were injured. Now they do this because it's officially a crime scene. They take it there. It's just there in the dock. Some people being whisked away in ambulances. People waiting to be whisked away in ambulances. And here's just the cluster that's going on around. There's some people that won't be going on. You know, that's just it. Those are some of the photographs from the time of the peer pressure. Nice notes on a phone. Shame on you. Peer pressure. Reminds me of Galaxy Quest, except real. Yeah. Real people with real people dying. Side note, Bone Tomahawk is a great movie. Oh, shoot. Let's see. Well, let's fast forward a little bit more here, shall we? We've got this accident. It's occurred. 3 years later. Well, I guess a little more than, it was like 2 years and 3 months later, in 2006, we had the conclusion of the trials, the criminal trials in this matter. Now's the time to put your guesses forward as to what caused this accident. What occurred here that led up to this? What would possibly have been a criminal action, and how many people were involved? Those are the questions this article is going to ask. I mean, because this was going to answer. Because this is where the story gets wild. We'll read some of this about the criminal proceedings. Then we're going to read a couple of articles bringing us up to the present date. Cannibalism. Oh yeah, speaking of cannibalism, keep that in mind. Drunk. No insurance fraud. No, someone was drunk. A lot of you are saying drunk. No, not drunk. But let's look at our like and subscribe poll today. We've got our like and subscribe poll. We've got 327 of you here watching the big old boomer fest. Thank you for sticking around if you watched the first 5 minutes and didn't lose all faith and hope in me. But please hit that like and subscribe button. We got 201 likes, 333 people here. 130 of you got to go down there and do your job. We've given you enough to like about. I came back. I fixed the boomer issue. I figured out what it was and dealt with it that quick. I adapted and I overcame. So hit that subscribe button. We did very well over the last weekend. We got Intercourse at Friday brought in quite a few subscribers. Let's keep the upward trend going. We are just this close to 64,000. We're just over 63,900. So less than 100 subscribers and we'll hit 64,000 on our quest for 100,000. That's what we want. I want the big old plaque back there. Then I can retire and you never have to hear from me again. Just kidding. I'll never. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, take our like and subscribe poll. We've got 3 more weeks in October. Do you want to hear about cannibalism? Do you want to hear about ghost ships? Do you want to hear about freakish animal attacks, or all of the above? Currently, all of the above is winning. And we literally do have one story that involves all 3 of those issues. So we can do cannibalism stories each week. We can do ghost ship stories each week. We can do freakish animal attack stories each week, or we can just do one of each. Let's see how that goes. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, take our poll. We'll see how it looks at the end of the show. The criminal aspects of this. He forgot to hit the brakes. No, he didn't forget to hit the brakes. Oh, notes on a phone says, show us the Zippo where it didn't happen. Yeah, one of the Navy personnel gave me a Zippo from the USS Ronald Reagan, the USS Ronald Reagan official Zippo, the Department of the Navy Zippo for the Ronald Reagan. It's actually in the other room. I was using it to light my pipe because I figured I should use it. Well, if I remember, I'll bring it tomorrow and show it off. Tourette's Majestic member for 2 months. Hey, Tourette's Majestic, been a minute since I've seen you here. OMG, I figured out I can send a milestone chat, and now I have 150 characters. If only I had something interesting to say. Cheers. Well, cheers to you too. Thank you so much for the support. And AA Ron, Boomerfest or not, still the best show of the week. Well, thank you very, very much, AA Ron. It would be a crime, much like the crime we're going to talk about now, if you didn't watch. Pilot and supervisor were sentenced. This is from the New York Times. The pilot and the supervisor. All right, come on. Let's embiggen that as much as we can. So, the Staten Island Ferry pilot who passed out at the helm in 2003. He passed out at the helm. There's a reason he passed out. We'll get there. The Staten Island Ferry, and he wasn't drunk. The Staten Island Ferry pilot who passed out at the helm in 2003, causing a crash that killed 11 people and seriously injured dozens of others, and his supervisor were each sentenced to more than a year in prison yesterday. The sentences, 18 months for the pilot and a year and a day for his supervisor, were handed down by Edward R. Corman, the chief judge in the United States District Court in Brooklyn, after a 2-hour, emotionally wrenching hearing. Tearful family members blamed the city for the crash and pleaded for stiff sentences, recalling the dead and speaking keenly about the grief and devastation to their families. The pilot, a former assistant captain, Richard J. Smith, made an impassioned speech. Now, there was a spoiler down there. Sorry, you got Strawberry moving in one of her 5-minute bouts of energy. Tearful family members blamed the city for the crash and pleaded for stiff sentences, recalling the dead and speaking keenly about the grief and devastation to their families. The pilot, former assistant captain Richard J. Smith, made an impassioned speech apologizing to the families, taking responsibility for the crash and deaths. Okay, we'll give him points for that. We'll give him points. He took responsibility for it. He took responsibility for the crash and the deaths. So good on him. But then what? And describing how he tried to kill himself right after the crash on October 15th, 2003. It's the city's fault because they're in Daily Quick Bites was asking, how could it be the city's fault? The city, they're in charge of the ferries. They're in charge of the ferries. They're the employers of the ferries, et cetera, et cetera. They oversee it. The New York Port Authority oversees things. That's the argument. But so dude tried to delete himself after the accident. But those circumstances are a bit fishy as well. Well, not fishy, just a little bit lame. And I really do have to apologize because, again, the dog has chosen to chew this hard bone exactly right on an echoey piece of the frame of the door over here. Give me a few seconds to chuck the bone out of here. I deeply apologize for this. I'll be right back in 10 seconds. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I don't know if you could hear it, but it was really, really loud and distracting to me. But she's going to continue to chaw on the bone, but it's going to be less echoey. So he did try to delete himself immediately after the accident. Mr. Smith, 57, who pleaded guilty in August 2004 to 11 counts of seaman's manslaughter, as well as concealing his use of pain medication. He read a statement in which he said he took painkillers the night before because of a bad back and was too exhausted to work. So yes, he's too exhausted for work. He has a bad back. He takes pain medication and he passes out at the helm of one of the largest ferries that was working at the time in that area. That's why Strawberry can't have nice things. Shh. Yeah, so he wasn't drunk. He was tired and feeling the effects of painkillers, and he passed out. I will regret for the rest of my life that I did not call in sick. Well, see, Ona Wall says, do they not have sick leave? Yeah, but he wanted the cash for working. So he just said right here, that's the biggest decision. The biggest regret of his life was that decision not to call in sick. He said, adding the decision set this whole nightmare into motion. When he passed out, the ferry, the Andrew J. Barberi, slammed into a concrete maintenance pier near the St. George's Terminal on Staten Island that tore the side of the vessel, killing and maiming many of the 1,500 passengers on board. I was on the wheel, he said. I am responsible. I failed in my responsibilities to my ferry passengers, and I stand ready to accept the consequences. After hearing the families of the dead speak, his supervisor, Patrick Ryan, the former ferry director who had pleaded guilty in April 2005 to one count of seaman's manslaughter and also to making false statements, declined to read a statement he had prepared, but upon prodding from Judge Corman, he briefly offered his condolences. Yeah, his big problem is being the supervisor and not supervising well and making false statements. For my part of this, I am so terribly sorry, he told the families who packed the courtroom's gallery, adding that the nightmares were going to haunt me forever. Well, buddy, at least you get to have nightmares, unlike 11 others, but you probably get to share in nightmares, although probably less horrible than a lot of other people, including 70 maimed people. Mr. Ryan's crime was that he failed to enforce the city's two-pilot rule, which required that the captain of the vessel, along with the assistant captain, be in the wheelhouse when the boat docked. At times, Mr. Smith, seated between two of his lawyers, seemed close to losing his composure as five members of five of the dead and one injured man spoke. The silver-haired Mr. Ryan rested his chin in his hand. The family members approached the bench and addressed the judge, in some cases leaning on one another, caressing one another, and passing tissues around as some wept. Christine Santoro, a sister of John A. Valinsky, 40, a carpet installer who died, said her brother, the youngest of three children, the only boy and the light of her mother's life, was so mangled and maimed that we could not see his body. All of you played a part in all of these people's deaths. Who are you to take God into your hands and take those innocent lives into your hands? She said. Shame on you. Her sister, Deborah Palmara, said that the brother's body was identified only through a photo of a tattoo on his arm because his body was so torn. You are no better than a drunk driver. And if you are so tired, you should not have been piloting that day, she said. And this is why I was saying when some of you are saying drunk, I said, no, not drunk, but the same thing. Driving under the influence or driving while impaired or whatever they call it in your jurisdiction is the same thing, whether it's drugs, whether it's over-the-counter medicine, whether it's alcohol. If you are functioning at a non-normal level, you are driving under the influence. I've seen people, people always say, I just, it was NyQuil. I just took some NyQuil. Doesn't matter. I've seen people convicted of DUI for having one shot. The BAC level, the blood alcohol level, that's not really the determining factor. That's just like you don't have an excuse at that point. Are you impaired? Was whatever you took sufficient to impair your ability to operate a vehicle? So, yeah. Painkillers, drunk, whatever, over the counter, prescription, doesn't really matter. If you're impaired, you're impaired. Kristen Bagarozza, 12, a slender girl with long brown hair, walked up to the judge's bench with her mother, her head held high. An only child, she talked proudly about her father, Joseph Bagarozza, 35, a stock trader who, like most of the families, lived on Staten Island. My dad was a great man, she said. He may not have been rich, but he was rich in his love for his family. Judge Corman, who appeared moved both by the families of the dead and by Mr. Smith's remorse, disregarded a request by the prosecution to mete out longer prison terms than those in the federal sentencing guidelines, and a request by the defense for shorter sentences. Instead, he hewed closely to the guidelines, which provided a range of 12 to 18 months for Mr. Smith and 6 to 12 months for Mr. Ryan. He also disregarded a report from the chief federal probation officer in Brooklyn that suggested 3 months for Mr. Smith and 6 for Mr. Ryan. I can't believe that a federal probation officer would say, oh, you killed 11 people, wounded 70, and traumatized 1,500 people. We recommend that you get 3 months in jail and 6 months respectively. That is ridiculous. That's a ridiculous sentencing recommendation. To me, and again, this is just me spouting. Absolutely no idea how they came to that recommendation, but it just sounds a lot like, yeah, we just don't want to worry about him, so let's get him through the system as quickly as possible. Judge Corman said he had concluded that Mr. Smith had suffered greatly from his own actions. Well, yes, we know that because he said it was, and he did attempt to delete himself. Fundamentally, what you just heard in his statement was not an act, the judge said. He is a broken person as a result of this event, and beyond whatever sentence I impose, he will suffer for whatever he did for the rest of his life. In his plea, Mr. Smith admitted to recklessness, but Judge Corman found that he was instead negligent, a lesser offense. And he admits he's reckless, but again, reckless, negligent, that's a legal distinction. So, however he meant to use the term, if he meant legally reckless or just what normal people think is reckless, I don't know. But he was given a lesser offense because the government had failed to prove that the pain medication was more likely than not the cause of the loss of consciousness. So yes, he was taking pain medication. Yes, he did pass out. Just the prosecutors didn't quite prove that the reason he passed out was more likely than not the pain medication. Rosalind R. Mousekop. That's like literally mouse head, isn't it? That's a name. The United States Attorney is Rose Mousehead. Unless my German has completely gone kaput, her name is Rosalind Mousehead. All right. Yes, Irish Rover, exactly. Not as broken as the person that had to be identified by a tattoo. Touché. All right, Rosalind Mousehead. That's what I thought, Daily Quick Bites. Rosalind Mousehead, the United States Attorney in Brooklyn who oversaw the case, said she was disappointed with that finding and said she would consider an appeal. Richard Smith knew that day that he was in no shape to pilot the Staten Island Ferry, for that he was reckless, she said. But the family seemed somewhat satisfied, perhaps because the sentences were well beyond those in the probation recommendation. Of course, nothing could possibly be enough, said Deborah Canini, whose husband, Pio Canini, a 52-year-old carpenter, was killed, but she said she was satisfied. The sentences are better than what I anticipated. The fact that someone got 18 months or a year for doing something that killed 11 people and severely wounded many of 70 injured people, that was more than they anticipated, tells you a lot about things, I think. I was expecting they would get next to nothing. After sentencing Mr. Ryan, Judge Corman questioned whether the supervisor was in fact guilty of the crime in his plea, calling it a very close case whether he was willfully negligent. Because Judge Corman sentenced him to a year and a day instead of a year, Mr. Ryan could be credited for good behavior, meaning he could be released in 10 months. Both men will surrender on February 21st to begin serving their terms. Correction! January 11th, 2016. Wednesday, an article yesterday about the sentencing of the Staten Island Ferry pilot and his supervisors in the 2003 crash that killed 11 people referred incorrectly in some copies to the number of charges of seaman's manslaughter to which the supervisor, Patrick Ryan, pleaded guilty. It was 1, not 11. The articles also gave incorrect spelling in some copies of the names of 2 relatives of the crash victims. They were Kristen Bagarotza, not Kristen, and Deborah Palmera, not Palmeras. So that was the essentially the long and the short of the criminal proceedings. The pilot and his supervisor were found guilty of negligence that resulted in the death of seamen, and were sentenced to 1 year and a day and 18 months, respectively, for the supervisor and the pilot. Mousehead, attorney Mousehead. Twisted Logic. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. I forgot we were doing that now. Are you not on locals? I'm trying to not put my money through YouTube. YouTube is the way to put your money through to me. Locals and Korean banks do not play together. So there we are. YouTube is the only way to throw money at me, unfortunately. But thank you. So feel free. You just did here, so thanks. Twisted Logic, thank you so very much for your support. And Twisted Logic has also become a new member of the Clean and Sober crew. She is our newest member. Thank you so much. Everybody wants to be Legal Vice's member. You should too. And Marv White with $5. Driving under the influence, I guess as the BAC, the 0.0XX makes it presumptive. Under doesn't make it legal. Just harder to prove. Exactly. That's why they run you through a battery of 8 million tests. Say, even though that's under the legal limit, he was still acting in an impaired manner, so we're charging him. And frankly, again, I have no problem with that. Bernice Conklin, time for a cigarette. Set up. Well, see, I do have a PayPal account, but because of the way Korean banking laws are ferocious. The way the Korean banking system and banking laws and whatnot are set up, YouTube, again, just their policy, they take about 1/3 of everything that comes in. The deal with PayPal is the same. So if it's going to be the same result, the same 1/3 being taken out, may as well just do it all through one source. Someday when I retire and I go back to the States, I'll be able to do more fun things with accounting. But anywho, there you go. Maritime Monday is my favorite, followed by the Unexplained shows with the ladies. Well, it's Halloween. We're going to squeeze in at least one Unexplained thing this month. Right, Flux? I know Flux is listening because we were chatting before the stream. So we'll have to get with Danny on and find some good Halloween topics. But this isn't the end of our story, unfortunately. It's been 20 years. 20 years exactly since this accident occurred. So what's happened in the interim? What's happened during the last 20 years? Well, that's the last thing we want to have a look at. Like, it's going to be a relatively short show here. Let me see where we are. Okay. We're just kind of checking some things out. Right. We've got 395 people watching and 260 likes. All right. Let's take a look at the 20th anniversary, which was yesterday, just a few hours ago. Flux says, ha ha ha, yeah. And come on, Jeff. You know I'm always here. Thanks? Question mark. All right. Notes on a phone says, please don't say they refitted it and it's still in use. Well, they refitted it and let's read the story. 20th anniversary of the Staten Island Ferry crash that killed 11. Screams still echo in my mind. And by the way, the Discovery Channel, they used to have a series called the Tragedies at Sea or Accidents at Sea or something like that. I can't remember what it was called, but they did a really good recreation of this. I mean, they actually rammed a ferry boat into a concrete pier to simulate this accident. So kind of cool. Flux says the soundboard is way too low. We don't have time to worry about that right now, so hush. Let's read the story. 20th anniversary of Staten Island Ferry crash that killed 11. Screams still echo in my mind. There's a good look at the inside of the ship. What do you think of that? And again, this is where the majority of the injured people were standing when the accident occurred. Darius Marshall had just finished his shift as a security guard at the United Nations when he called his banker brother Eros at his Tribeca office, but Eros was busy. Darius got off early and stopped by. Okay, my brain, all right, shame on my brain, because I'm thinking, don't use Eros and got off early by anywhere near each other. So yeah, Eros was busy. Darius got off early and stopped by. I was on a project and couldn't get away. I told him that I'd have to catch him next time, said the Post. So Darius boarded the Andrew J. Barberi ferry boat at Whitehall Terminal in Lower Manhattan and set off for his new home on Staten Island, where he had just moved with his wife of 4 months, Cindy. Just 2 years earlier, Darius had barely survived the collapse of the World Trade Center on 9/11. He was knocked unconscious by falling debris and was finally found by his family at a hospital ferry boat in New Jersey 13 hours after the attacks. This time, Darius would not make it. 20 minutes after leaving the tip of Manhattan, as the 3,335-ton, 310-foot-long Barberi approached the St. George terminal, the off-course vessel plowed into a maintenance pier at full speed, piercing a 250-foot wide hole in its starboard side and ripping through the main deck, where many of the 1,500 passengers, Darius included, lined up to disembark. At 25, Darius Marshall was the youngest of 11 people to lose their lives that day. He was my younger brother and my best friend, said Eros Marshall of the Wagner College, College graduate. There's Darius Marshall, who was a security guard at the United Nations. He was the youngest victim, according to the headline there. And again, there's that side being ripped open. Over 2/3 of the ship was just opened like a tuna fish can. I mean, have you ever tried to do this to a shoe? Have you just ever tried to rip a shoe in half like this? The amount of force that takes. Ugh. October 15th, which was yesterday, will mark the 20th anniversary of the ferry tragedy, caused when the man at the ship's wheel, Assistant Captain Richard Smith, blacked out of the helm after taking a strong prescription medicine for a bad back. Again, as we just heard, they were given a lesser sentence and for negligence rather than recklessness. And again, the reason for that was largely that the prosecution failed to prove that the blackout was more likely than not a result of taking these strong prescription medications for the bad back. 70 people were injured, some horrifically maimed. Doctors at Staten Island Hospital performed amputations on 4 people and treated untold broken bones, crushed pelvises, and life-changing trauma. James McMillan Jr., 44, of the Bronx, lost the use of his arms and his legs. Paul Esposito, 24, lost both legs above the knee. YouTube doesn't like those pictures. In 2004, Esposito told the Post he still had nightmares, but wanted to live a full life. I want to have a positive attitude. I want to bring some good out of a bad situation. Barbara A. Butcher, an investigator with the City Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, again, gosh, I hope she's not a doctor, because Dr. Butcher is not really great. We've got Eros, the brother of one of the victims. We've got Mousekopf, literally Prosecutor Mousehead on this. This is kind of odd. Some odd names here. Barbara A. Butcher, an investigator with the City Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, was assigned to the case. My first view of the destruction of the ferry was heartbreaking, she recalled. So many personal items strewn through the wreckage of the interior. And then the sight of human remains crushed beneath the seats and windows. Worse was to follow. I remember telling a young wife that her husband was identified among the victims, she recalls. Her screams still echo in my mind. Eros Marshall returned to his home that night in Sparta, New Jersey, and turned on his television, his first glimpse of what had happened. He called Darius, but only got his voicemail. There's Paul Esposito, who lost both of his legs, as we just read. I knew something was wrong, he said. My wife and I drove to a facility that the Red Cross had set up on Staten Island. It took an hour or so before they told us that he had passed away in the accident. I wasn't angry. I was devastated. I remember thinking, how am I going to tell my mother? Now, here we go. This is the next thing. We talked about Captain Smith and how in his statement at sentencing, he said he was regretful. He was remorseful. This was the biggest decision, the biggest mistake he ever had. His biggest regret was not calling in sick. And he said that, he'd mentioned that he had tried to delete himself. He had tried to kill himself after this. Well, I implied that there may be more to that than there seemed, and there is. This wasn't like, weeks, months, or a year, because the criminal stuff ended about 3 years, 2 years and 3 months after the accident. So this wasn't 1 year later, 2 years later, 6 months later. Well, as soon as the accident, I guess crashing into a maintenance pier at full speed and opening up your ship like a can of tuna fish will wake you up from your slumber, apparently, because in the immediate aftermath of the crash, Captain Smith fled the scene. He ran away. He ran away from the boat and he ran to his home in Staten Island. He fled the scene. And then he locks himself in the bathroom, tried to slit his wrists, and attempted to shoot himself twice in the chest with a pellet gun. A pellet gun? We used to have BB and pellet gun wars when I was a kid. That ain't going to do it. But yeah, so he ran away from the scene of the accident, and then he ran home and tried to do this. His suicide attempt failed when his family and some of his coworkers kicked the door down to save him. Did they kick the door down to save him, or did they kick the door down to get him? Smith, who still lives on Staten Island, did not return messages seeking comment. Yeah, probably best not to answer the phone. On August 2004, Smith pleaded guilty to 11 counts of seaman's manslaughter, and 17 months later was sentenced to 18 months in prison. Right? MG Law says, well, a pellet gun is not going to pierce the chest cavity. Yeah, it didn't pierce arms, legs, or lower back area either during our little escapades. But here's some people involved. This is the other guy who was supposed to be in the pilot house along with Smith. He avoided prosecution, but he was fired. There's the captain there. That's Captain Smith over here. The guy, the old guy. In the Brooklyn Federal Courthouse, he said he would regret for the rest of my life that I did not call in sick. Patrick Ryan, the director of ferry operations, also pled guilty to one count of. See, they've used pled and pleaded in the same article. Choose one, stick with one. Anyway, Patrick Ryan, the director of ferry operations, also pled guilty to one count of seaman's manslaughter and making a false statement to the investigators. He admitted he had failed to enforce the rule requiring 2 qualified pilots to be in the wheelhouse at all times. He was sentenced to 1 year and 1 day in prison. He could not be reached for comment. And here's the other ship's captain, Michael Gansis, who was supposed to be in the pilot house alongside Smith, avoided prosecution, but was fired by the City Department of Transportation for refusing to cooperate with investigators. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, that seems to have got him off there. Now 58, Gansis lives in Hazlet, New Jersey. He did not return messages seeking comment. Again, he didn't cooperate then. He ain't talking now. A scathing report from the National Transportation Safety Board exposed systemic issues with the ferry safety and criticized the DOT for its failure to implement and oversee safe, effective operating procedures. It also cited the failure of the captain to exercise his command responsibility over the vessel by ensuring the safety of his operations. Well, yeah, it's kind of what happened there. Coast Guard safety recommendations dating as far back as 1998 had also been ignored, investigators found. A raft of civil lawsuits were filed against the city, which paid out more than $90 million in settlements to victims and their families. McMillan received $18.3 million and Esposito was awarded $8.9 million. Good for you guys. Good on you. Far too often these Maritime Monday stories don't end with people getting paid out, payouts of up to $90 million. The NTSB report recommended a litany of reforms for the DOT, that's Department of Transportation, the U.S. Coast Guard, the Passenger Vessel Association, and those states that operate public ferries, chiefly regarding stricter oversight and of licensed pilots' medical certification and the implementation of safety management programs. The damaged pier would require $1.4 million for repairs, and the Barberi itself needed a $7 million overhaul. Well, it was relaunched in 2004. A memorial plaque honoring the victims was installed in its deck, but it wouldn't be the last time the ill-fated ship was involved in a major accident. On May 8th, 2010, a faulty valve that prevented the propellers from stopping caused the boat to slam into a dock at the St. George terminal once more, resulting in 40 passengers being hospitalized for minor injuries. Oops, I did it again. Slamming into a dock in the same location, injuring 40 people. For Butcher, remember Butcher is the office worker for the medical examiner, who chronicled her investigation in What the Dead Know, learning about life as a New York City death investigator. The scale of the Staten Island Ferry disaster may not have been the same as others she worked on, like 9/11 and the 2004 tsunami in East Asia, but it was no less important. Some people. Although the Staten Island Ferry crash was a smaller incident, it mattered to each and every family that their loved one was found and identified, she said. The pain is the same for each of us who loses someone we love in a tragedy. For Eros Marshall, 47, and his family, there is no bitterness, although the pain remains. We're not an angry family, and it's good to know that NYC has made changes to ferry operations to minimize the chances of a similar accident in the future. It literally happened again to the same ship. The same place. But my family still struggles with the loss all these years later, and I don't think we'll ever get past it. We miss Darius every day. All right, we won't read the last paragraph because that's expanded upon in the next article. The final article we want to get to here is what about the ship? We had what about the people that were responsible for the accident? What about the victims and survivors of the accident? Now we look at what about this ship itself? Whatever happened to the old bag of metal and glass and steel and everything else? The Andrew J. Barberi. Let's take a look, shall we? Before we do that, let's see what's going on here. I thought I'd started some of the things I wanted to talk about. Yeah, who the hell would step foot on that boat? Well, we're going to answer that question here in just a second. I'd rather have my legs than the money. Well, see, that's the thing. And this is what I was talking about with on Megan Fox's show the other day. I mean, it's an accepted fact. Nothing can be done to bring somebody's legs back. Nothing can be done to bring back a loved one. Nothing can be done to bring back the deceased. Nothing can be done to make these people whole again. And that's essentially what the law is for, is where accidents or crimes or civil disputes happen. The objective is to make the victim whole again as if this had never occurred. But it's a plain fact. It's an unfortunate situation that the dead can never be brought back. The injured can never be fully healed. People who have lost limbs, have been paralyzed. You can't restore them to becoming whole again. So we have this legal fiction that says we understand that. We know that you cannot be made whole, but we all have to play by the legal fiction that somehow money will make it all better. And that's why you have the compensatory damages, the damages that compensate you for your losses and for the injury, and you have the punitive damages, which are solely to punish the person who did wrong things. Again, it's not that money will make you feel better for losing a loved one. It's not that money will make you feel great about losing your legs. It's just about there's really literally nothing else we can do for you other than give you some sort of compensation for your injuries. So I mean that's probably the biggest sadness of the law, I guess, is that literally people's lives come down to mathematical equations. Your finger's worth this much, your leg's worth that much, your life is worth this much. ARC5 says legal advice is the dead can never come back. Sounds like quitting talk there. Well, that was the tagline for, is now that it's October, I guess we can mention this. That was the tagline for the original Stephen King Pet Cemetery. Sometimes they do come back. That was the tagline. But no, and yeah, unfortunately, yeah, money can't solve the problem, but we pretend it does. It's shitty, and there's nothing that really that can be done about it, but that's what we've all accepted in the legal system. Oh, at the very least, offset the cost of treatment. Those are the compensatory damages: lost earnings, funeral expenses, medical treatment costs, remaining disability. Those are compensatory damages. And then you say, okay, now we're just gonna punish them by giving you these ridiculously high punitive damages to the victims. Yeah, so those things are all figured into the calculations. But anyway, we're talking about what happened to the ship. Here's the ferry terminal. Well, Staten Island, New York, the longest running ship in the Staten Island Ferry fleet, has officially, and this was, when was this? This was October 6th, 10 days ago. 10 days ago, the longest running ship in the Staten Island Ferry fleet has officially made its last trip between St. George and Lower Manhattan, with the iconic orange boat set to be sold off in the coming months. The Andrew J. Barberi, which served Staten Islanders for more than 4 decades after entering service in 1981, made its final run across New York Harbor late last month, with city transportation officials saying they will soon share plans to commemorate the vessel. The city has made generational investments to upgrade NYC DOT's ferry fleet for improved operations and commuter experience, and, as always planned with the arrival of the Aulis-class vessels, the Andrew J. Barberi ferry has been retired. The DOT spokesperson Vin Barone. The Barberi, a 310-foot boat that can carry over 5,000 passengers in a single trip, will forever be linked to one of the bloodiest public transportation accidents in Staten Island history. The boat's retirement comes just weeks before the 20-year anniversary of the 2003 crash, which was, as we've been saying, was yesterday, the 20-year anniversary, that claimed the lives of 11 riders as the Barberi lost control and plowed full speed into a concrete maintenance pier in St. George. The city intends to auction off the retired vessel, and as has been the case with other retired ferry boats, though officials could not provide an exact timeline for when that sale will occur. In January 2022, 2 of the borough's favorite sons, comedians Pete Davidson and Colin Jost, teamed up with comedy club owner Paul Italia to purchase the decommissioned John F. Kennedy Ferry for $280,000 through the city's online public auction. Bet you didn't know you could buy a ferry boat through an online public auction, did you? The group plans to transform the ship into a bar, restaurant, and entertainment venue, though refurbishing and retrofitting the vessel has proved to be a complicated, costly endeavor that could take years. So the ship that's been at the center of all of this has been retired after 42 years of operation. It retired at the end of last month, the end of September, just a few weeks before yesterday's 20th anniversary of the Staten Island Ferry accident. It's going to be sold off, whatever somebody does with it, whether they scrap it, whether they retrofit it and make it into something else, has yet to be seen, but the ship is no longer carrying passengers. 2 bad accidents, 1 extremely bad, resulting in prison sentences for the captain and the supervisor, and over $90 million in payouts to victims and their families. And again, if there's a great Discovery Channel documentary on this that was done. It's all over YouTube. That's one of the reasons why we didn't have a video on this, because that's literally about the only video that comes up, or segments of it, when you search for the Staten Island Ferry accident. It's almost exclusively the Discovery Channel video. So check that out if you want to see more in depth. You want to see the recreations, interviews with the people involved, with passengers, with officials, etc. It's a great interview. Wish we could watch it, but Discovery Channel is pretty copyrighty. Yeah. So hey, that's what we've got. That's what we've got for the show today, folks. I told you it would be quite the short little adventure. So we'll spend a few minutes here looking through some of the chat, get some of your final comments on this, and next week, according to your poll here, let's look at the poll here, by the way, the like and subscribe poll. There's 400 of you here, 300 likes. Come on, you 100 that haven't done your job. Get down there. You like this. So get down and hit the like button. It ain't gonna kill you. Please, I would appreciate it if you would hit the like button. And if you have subscribed, thank you so much. And please double check to make sure you're still subscribed. And if you haven't, I would deeply appreciate your subscription. I think I've earned it. I hope I've earned it. You know I've earned it. Do it. And then take our like and subscribe poll, our daily reminder to like and subscribe. What should we do for October Maritime Monday shows? We got 3 left. Should we do cannibalism? Should we do ghost ships? Should we do freakish animal attacks? Or should we do all of the above? Overwhelmingly, 46%, nearly half of you said all of the above. 19% said cannibalism, 6% said freakish animal attacks, ghost ships, 29%. So we'll do all 3 of them. Why not? We got 3 weeks. We got 3 stories, including a ghost ship full of cannibal rats. So I told you, we got one that covers all 3 bases. A ghost ship full of cannibal rats. Stay tuned for that. That'll be, and then on the 6th of November, the first Monday of November, we will be having the founder of a watch company, an Irish watch company, Nomadic. I own one of their watches. They're a great watch. They're very, very much maritime oriented people. The founder is going to be on here to talk about a little bit about the watch company, why they've built it, their maritime traditions, and the maritime tradition and history of Belfast, Ireland, which those of you in Ireland know, and many of you others may know. The shipyard in Belfast, Ireland, was the shipyard that built the Titanic. So we'll be having him on to talk about some of his maritime adventures, some of his sea-related accidents, founding the watch company, and the overall general maritime history of Ireland and Belfast specifically in Belfast. So stay tuned for that the first week of November. I think that brings us here. Oh, we love Jeff's poll. Of course, everybody loves Jeff's poll. Everybody wants to be my member, and y'all love my poll. No ghost ship stories. I said ghost ship stories. That's right up there. That's the second one on the list, ghost ships. So we're going to do ghost ships, cannibalism, and freakish animal attacks for the rest of October. Don't panic, rando algorithms. We've got ghost ship stories. This was awesome. Best chat, Mods and Jeff on YouTube. Thank you so much. I'm the best Jeff on YouTube. So yeah, and it's a little bit tragic and tragedy to have some of the anniversary of some of these big accidents coming up. And I mean, one of the next big anniversaries to come up, as many of you will know, is the Edmund Fitzgerald. That's coming up very soon, November 10th, I believe. Yeah, November 10th. So we'll probably doing another Edmund Fitzgerald show the second weekend. The second Maritime Monday in November. I don't want to just do a rebroadcast of the one I did last year, but we may do a rewatching of that or a different video to see how people's ideas and feelings have changed over the past year. Now we're not going to do only ghost ships because I want to read the story of the cannibal rat infested ghost ship so that it counts as a ghost ship story, but it also counts as a cannibalism story and a weird animal attack story. So, right, everybody, just who cares about the others in October? Only do ghost ships. Negative. Got to do cannibals. Cannibals are also a part of Halloween. Come on. We're going to be talking about Japanese cannibals. So stand by for that. Japanese cannibals in America. Well, what does that have to do with Maritime Monday? Find out in one of the coming weeks. Ooh, I got a message. What is my message? Nothing. All right, folks. Thank you so much for everything we did here today. We got through our Maritime Monday. Just kind of scanning back here through the chat. I want to say thank you very much to our mods. As always, we have the greatest mods ever. You guys are super fun, super awesome. Oh, and I didn't get the new merch set up yet. I will do that tomorrow so we can have new merch for the tomorrow's show, which will be the Johnny Depp Amber Heard sidebar dramatic readings. I have no idea who's joining me. I literally haven't heard from anybody. I've been abandoned. I haven't heard from Chandler Remington. I haven't heard from Megan Fox, and I haven't heard from Ozzy Overlord about whether they're joining. It may be a one-man show tomorrow. It may be the entire squad. We'll just have to see. So join us tomorrow for what may be the last Johnny Depp Amber Heard sidebar reading. If not, it'll be Wednesday. If we finish it on Tuesday, I don't know. We'll do something else on Wednesday. Thursday, as always, O.J. Simpson. Friday will be a recap of our next trial I plan on covering, the Krzyzewski Visine murder trial, which is scheduled to start Monday, October 23rd. So until then, thank you again, mods. Thank you, Vice Squad chat. You guys are the most awesome Vice Squad ever. You're the only Vice Squad that I care about. You are my Vice Squad. And you guys are the best, hands down chat on the entire internet. And what we're going to do now is we are going to feed over into Megan Fox. We're going to give Megan Fox a good raid. And I'm going to go pop on over here and join her for part of the taking care of Maya trial. And we'll see you over there. Let me just quickly take care of the back of the house stuff to get things set up. And please hit that like and subscribe. We are at exactly 63,900 subscribers, 100 away from 64. All right, here's our live show for today. Got to go to the Maritime Monday stream customization. Hit that redirect button. Find Megan Fox. Megan Fox taking care of Maya trial, day 16. Boom, save. And it should transfer everything over there. But again, YouTube only automatically transfers about 25% of people over. Do you know that? That's weird, isn't it? But if you don't get transferred, there's gonna be a little blue box up in the upper right-hand corner, a chat that says, hey, something's going on over at Megan Fox's channel. Click here, find out what it is. That should take you over there. If it doesn't, find it manually. Megan Fox writer, just search for that in YouTube and you should find it. So take care, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow for Johnny Depp Amber Heard sidebar readings. Until then, take care of each other. And remember, whatever you do and whoever you do it with, always make sure that you enjoy your legal vices.